This life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.
Fighter pay is something that is just not a story that is going away. Even last night, BC, after we had already planned out the show, Jorge Masvidal took back to Twitter, and I feel like we've discussed this sort of ad nauseum at this point, but it really is something we can't get away from because, BC, it's an issue in all of combat sports. Nay, it's an issue in sports more generally. Think about it this way. In the UFC side of things, we have everything we've discussed. John Jones, Henry Cejudo, and again, just even last night, Jorge Masvidal. On the boxing side, it's not so much people complaining about their pay as such. It's more that the model, as it stands, is insufficient to get the big draws back, at least for right now. And then even in the wider world of sports, BC, look at what's happening in American baseball. These athletes there with their union are complaining about some of the offers that the owners are making in terms of what the pay should be for the number of games. And the question is, why is there this common thread of, let's call it, in our case, in the combat sports world, fighter pay, but in the wider world, the sports world more generally, the sort of athlete pay? BC, I have a theory on this. I want to see what you think about it.
Yeah.
Here is my...
Don't just sing it, Luke. Bring it.
Here is my thought about this. If you look at any industry, entertainment, sports, whatever, the pandemic has accelerated either trends or really revealed big problems that have existed in everyone's business. So you take, for example, AMC movie theaters, right? There was this trend already of people using just Fandango Now and Apple iTunes and TV to just get movies when they came home. There's been a real decline in the use of American theaters. They make most of their money, by the way, from concessions. Well, now this has turned into an existential crisis because it has exacerbated, the pandemic has exacerbated and exposed the trends. I think the same kind of thing is happening across pay in all of sports. In the UFC, these guys have been wanting to get paid for a really long time. They finally have information about it. They've been speaking out here or there in general, but now with the court information and the UFC's relatively weakened position, so to speak, they're speaking out. On the combat sports side for boxing, right, they're not really complaining about the model per se, except they want money from the gate. You're not going to get any of these fighters that make money off the gate until there is a gate or until some kind of rich, probably evil person, like a Saudi prince or something, just coughs up a bunch of extra money. And then on the athlete side, dude, the Major League Baseball and their players, they're supposed to have a renewed CBA negotiations next season. This is a foretelling of all the problems that are going to happen if they can't even get this right. I don't know how we get out of this mess, BC, but that is my thought. The pandemic has accelerated trends, and it has exposed problems, fractures, fault lines in all of the different sports, and that's why you're seeing pay concerns everywhere.
It's exposed the fault lines in your own marriage and your, relationship with your kids and in your business. It's put honestly, a magnifying glass on everything because never in life do we press pause for this long and sort of take stock of what is in front of us. But, look, I get it. I get Jorge Masvidal, right? He's a rider, but still he's just a simple man. All he wants is money. F the fame. He's a simple man. The money's not there right now. And I thought it was interesting, Luke, from some reporting from Ariel Helwani of ESPN, that UFC did go back to the well ahead of the announcement of this 251 card and was like, okay, Jorge, you can get what we paid you for the Nate Diaz fight. We'll double the original offer. And he still was like, no, F off. This is about principle. So this is getting very interesting, Luke. But you teased on something when you made the Saudi prince joke. When these big fights are about to get made, right? Like Anthony Joshua last year rematching Andy Ruiz. And we're like, man, I want that crap back in Madison Square Garden, or put it in Cowboy Stadium in front of 100,000, or put it in Wembley Stadium where it belongs, right? And then it goes to Saudi because they offered Anthony Joshua $80 million, right? It actually happened. And then we're like, oh, really? Why is it going there? Luke, we've never needed these folks, and I'm not saying those people, but when I'm saying these folks, I mean,
what do you mean,
foreigners,
you people?
Yeah, foreigners with a lot of money who may or may not be sketchy. And just like there's a lot of headlines coming out of Europe right now with, the head of Tyson Fury's management team, Daniel Kinahan or whatever his name is, being at the forefront of trying to make this Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury series while he's, got some blood money going around. I got a couple things to say about this overall picture. We have never needed these people more. And if you're worried about blood money in combat sports, that's in the veins of all combat sports forever, unfortunately. It is. How do you think people can afford to launch these streaming networks and do things? It's a sketchy industry. It just is what it is. And I never thought I'd be saying this, but part of the reason I'm not mad at UFC going to Abu Dhabi and tricking us with this Fight Island thing is maybe that's the only way we can get 3 title fights on a card without a live gate. These exorbitant site fees. And we used to get mad when Bob Arum would take Manny Pacquiao to Macau and these pay-per-views would be on at weird times. But he was getting stupid site fee money to be able to pay for everything. We kind of need that right now, Luke. So if that Nigerian prince is emailing you, I would actually respond back and be like, hey, man, can you, any chance you can help us out getting these fights to happen? Because without a live gate, that is the only way it's going to work. And I may be in a spot where I'm just like, I don't care where the money comes from.
Yeah, but here's the problem where it gets kind of complicated, which is, all right, it's one thing to take somebody's money that's made a bunch of cash in the oil business, right? I mean, as to your point, we've all watched and partaken in some kind of way in combat sports that has shown a degree of moral relativism. But you go back to Abu Dhabi, Dana White kept talking about the infrastructure being built. Now, we don't know this to be the case for what is happening on Fight Island. I want to be very clear about this. However, what we do know is the case on Abu Dhabi more generally, and then specifically in other parts of that world, for example, with the upcoming 2022 World Cup. Again, this is not specific to Abu Dhabi in this case, but I'm just pointing out they are known for bringing in immigrants from Southeast Asia and putting them in absolutely horrific human rights conditions. Many of them are dying on the job to build infrastructure for things that need to be built, whether it's sports or otherwise. Again, I do not know if that's the case here, but if it wasn't, that would have to be like a pivot away from what they normally do. So it's like, where do you draw the line? It's one thing to take somebody's money who's rich and, okay, well, whatever. But now we're beginning to get into this territory where, like, how many compromises do we want to make to get the exact same thing? You talk about taking Saudi money. Saudi money also, remember what the Saudis are doing? They're being involved in essentially the destruction of Yemen and its blockade, which has led to easily the worst humanitarian crisis right now on earth. Millions, sort of with food insecurity, and then hundreds of thousands starving to death. That's not an exaggeration. That's real. So it's like, how important is fights to you? I mean, in the end, they're going to do what they're going to do. If it's legal and if it's above board and they acknowledge it, okay, well, it's just going to go forward. I just think as fight fans, you should know how the sausage is made, and you should acknowledge it outright. I'm okay with taking Saudi money because I don't care about the Yemen blockade. Well, then say it out loud if that's how you feel. And I'm not saying there's an easy answer.
We all have a line, right?
Last thing. I'm not saying there's an easy answer. I'm just saying you got to be honest with where you're at.
I mean, if your boy Uncle Ramsjan Kazdudan, that guy, Verdum's friend, if he was suddenly the bankroller, would you feel a little bit more? I mean, yeah, it does. It is all sketchy, but hey, did you enjoy the 2008 Olympics in Beijing? Did you enjoy that over-elaborate opening ceremony with the drums? You want to go and read the stories of how they practiced for that and how that whole thing was put together and that stadium was made? You're right, Luke. All right, blood money's everywhere, okay? Jay's trying to get me off of this, okay? Jay, why don't you get off for once, all right?
No, it's a fair point. You're right. We talk about, all these people are bad actors, then we do all this business in China, and then we come to find out, there are horrific human rights abuses there, whether they're Uyghur Muslims or whether they're not. So you're right. We're all of us are guilty, me included, you, and certainly the viewers as well.
This life was all I ever wanted.
I'm not leaving. Not yet.
I was hoping you'd say that.
We gotta hit the streets, make some money.
People like us must destroy people like him. Buckle up.
Get Showtime free at Showtime.com.